All right. So yesterday we reviewed Cornell notes and we talked about this form that I'm showing you today. What I'm going to do now is I am going to give you a lecture based on really the main things that happen in Act One of the play Macbeth. Now, in the PDF, Act One covers pages 215 through 230. What we need you to do with this information that I'm about to share with you is listen and just record the main ideas. You're going to see in the notes section, I've broken down the whole act by scene. I recommend using bullet points, summarizing what I'm saying, and just writing down the main ideas for each scene. The great thing about using a Screencastify video is if I am speaking too quickly, you can pause the video, you can rewind the video, go back and listen. But no, you do not need to copy down everything I'm saying word for word. You're just writing down the main ideas. So let's get started. All right, so for Act One, Scene One, there's a few things you need to know. Now, if you remember, when we were looking at Shakespearean drama, it mentioned that King James of England was interested in the supernatural. So Shakespeare throws in some supernatural into the very beginning of the play. And what we see is there are witches that give us some background information. They say that not everything that looks good is actually good. And not everything that looks or seems bad is actually bad. Things are topsy-turvy. Nothing is as it seems. Nothing. And that's really the main material from scene one. Then scene two gets into some of the real action. What's happening in scene two is there's a huge battle. Some people have decided they are not happy with the current king of Scotland and they're going to betray him. And so there's a battle between those against the current king and those who are loyal to him. And a lot of the soldiers and the people higher up in rank notice how one soldier, Macbeth, is just amazing on the battlefield. They say he's loyal, he's brave. In fact, Macbeth is the one that kills the main person in charge of the group against the king. I think his name is MacDowald, Macdonwald, who's also known as the Thane of Condor. Now, let me kind of describe what a Thane is. A Thane is kind of similar to a mayor or a governor. It's the person in charge of an area. Macbeth doesn't just kill him, he beheads him, and then brings the soldiers, the general, this betrayer's head. Kind of gory. But that's scene two. In scene three, we are introduced to Banquo. Now, Banquo is important for the following reason. Remember, once again, from Shakespearean drama, King James supposedly, his line, royal line of the family, is related to someone named Banquo, was started with someone named Banquo. So to please the king, Shakespeare is going to include someone named Banquo. Banquo is Macbeth's best friend, and both of them are on their way home after the battle, and they run into the witches. And once again, this is scene three. And the witches give some predictions about things that are going to happen in the future. Macbeth learns he's going to get a promotion. He's going to become Thane of another area. Currently, he's the Thane of Glamis, but he's going to become the Thane of yet another area and eventually even be king. And Banquo's like, yo, what about me? Well, he didn't really say yo, but Banquo learns that he won't be king, but future kings will be descended from him. His sons will become king. Well, Banquo's like, yeah, that's cool. All right. and he's ready to go home. Macbeth, on the other hand, is like, wait a minute. I want to know more about this. I'm really interested in this. But the witches vanish. That's scene 3. Now, in scene 4, we learn that the king was on the battlefield and he's trying to make his way home. And kind of Macbeth's castle is halfway in between the battlefield and his house. So he wants to thank Macbeth for his service. But keep in mind, Macbeth is still thinking about all the things the witches told him, and he's happy to serve the king. But when he learns that the son's king Malcolm is going to get the promotions, I don't know, he feels jealous, Macbeth. He was like, wait a minute, I kind of had my heart set on getting those promotions after the witches told me about it. So we're going to see there's certain themes in Macbeth, like greed, jealousy, ambition. And ambition is when you want more than what you have. And sometimes that's a good thing, but sometimes it's not. Macbeth definitely has ambition and he likes the thought of becoming king. So he begins to think, well, there may be some things, some shady things I have to do to secure the position of king if I'm going to ever be king, even if it negatively impacts the king's son, Malcolm. So now we're beginning to see this other side of Macbeth. I know this is a long act. Not all of the acts are this long. Scene 5. Now, at this point, we kind of jump to another area, to the actual castle where Macbeth lives. And Lady Macbeth, Macbeth's wife, she's reading a letter from her husband and she's learning about the battle, what the witches said. Her husband's going to get a promotion. And she's like, this is good because any promotion her husband gets, that's going to help her social position as well. She even learns that the king is going to end up staying at their castle before he goes home. And so this gets kind of like the juices flowing in her head. And she starts thinking, like, I know a way my husband could become king. If we get rid of the current king, King Duncan, considering all these great things people are saying about my husband, wouldn't he get the promotion? Hmm. But then she starts thinking more and more about her husband, and she's like, you know what? No, my husband's too loyal. He wouldn't do that. He just doesn't. He's just too nice in some ways. You know, not on the battlefield, but in other ways, I just don't think he has what it takes to become king. So at that moment, she asks, like, the supernatural, some higher power to help her become more like a man so she can be cruel, she can be vicious, and she can plan King Duncan's murder. I think she says, unsex me, make me less like a woman, more like a man. Mm-hmm. And so she's thinking about this and she's like, you know what? I'm just going to have to instruct Macbeth, my husband, on what to do and how to act so we can make sure he becomes king. So we get a real interesting insight into his wife in scene 5. Mm-hmm. Crazy lady. Scene 6 is pretty short. In scene 6, the king comes to Macbeth's castle. They warmly welcome him. They say how happy they are to serve the king. And the king even praises the wife, Lady Macbeth, calling her an honored hostess. Of course, we know the truth. We know what she's thinking. So we recognize the dramatic irony. but he doesn't know what they're planning. He thinks that they're very loyal. And so he's open and honest with them, thinking he's safe. And that's scene 6. The last, and I know you're like, finally, the last scene from just Act 1, Scene 7, starts to present some problems. Macbeth is like, I know my wife told me the plan, but he's second guessing it. He's thinking, I don't know if I really want to harm the king because there's going to be consequences. Do I want to deal with those consequences? But ultimately, his ambition gets the better of him. He really wants to be king. He's just having second thoughts. So he tells his wife, let's not go through with the plan. A lot of people have a good opinion of me. The king is heaping all these honors on me. Let's just let things take their course. Ooh, and the wife is not okay with that. She immediately starts putting down her husband. She questions his manhood. She tells him, you know what? We're not going to fail, but you have to have courage. Stick your courage to, wait, have your courage, put your courage to the sticking place, just have some courage, be a man. So after this, Macbeth is like, whoa, okay, I'll go along with your plan, because I am a man, so she kind of gets into his ego and gets into his head. Now, the plan for the murder involves the guards that protect the king. Lady Macbeth is going to get them totally drunk. And when they're drunk and they pass out, she's going to take their little knives and she's going to have her husband use the guards' knives to kill the king. And then, leave those knives by the guards. So it looks like they murdered the king. Now, the trick is Macbeth, who's having second thoughts, he's got to go along with this. He's got to to pull this off, he's got to pretend like nothing is going to happen and that he's still being loyal to the king. So now that we've given you all this information, and I understand I may have talked rather quickly, but you can go back, you can watch the video, you can pause, you can fast forward through the parts you don't need. We need you to go back and just the main ideas you're going to fill in for scenes 1 through scene 7 of Act 1. So we're going to give you some time now to fill in those notes. All right, let's do the notes.